Ahimsa, non-violence. Everyone in the world wants it in order to live peacefully. Still, this is something the world lacks the most. To traverse the path of yoga and reach the highest state of consciousness, Maharshi Patanjali prescribes Ahimsa as one of the yamas to be followed as a code of conduct. But this is a virtue that people in the world need the most today, no matter whether they are interested in spirituality or not. So, whatever we'll talk about today is applicable to everyone if we desire for a peaceful and kind world. So what do you think is violence? Killing someone or physically hurting someone, right? But isn't killing or becoming physically violent are just the actions that someone performs? And isn't it so that any action we take or any word that we utter is just a manifestation of our thoughts? We spoke about it earlier as well, right? A violent action is simply the result of a violent thought. And the broader definition of being non-violent is not only to avoid taking any action with the intention to harm someone physically, but also not even speaking or thinking about anyone with an evil intention. Because if we have it in our thoughts, we'll end up doing it someday. So, it is important to continuously watch our thoughts, and if we have any negative thoughts about anything or anyone, analyze the reason behind them. It happens with all of us sometime or the other that we develop negativity about someone, and even though consciously we don't want to harm the person, but somewhere in the corner there is a thought that we get uncomfortable with and don't want to acknowledge it. But by ignoring anything and not letting it come to the surface, we only suppress things, not handle them. So, learn to acknowledge your thoughts and emotions and be truthful to yourself. I ended the last episode with this question about how being untruthful can make you violent. This is one aspect of the answer. When we are untruthful to ourselves and suppress our negative thoughts for anyone, we develop a tendency to become violent in many unexpected ways. At times it happens with us that we react very violently to a situation which could have been handled calmly. It happens because of those thoughts we have ignored or suppressed in the past, because probably acknowledging them was making us uncomfortable, especially when these thoughts are for the people we love. Another aspect of the same question is at the gross level, when we are untruthful to others. When we lie, we have a deep tendency to make the other person believe that lie, because otherwise we will be in an embarrassing situation. This makes us try hard to make the other person believe us, and when it doesn't work, it causes aggression, which makes our thoughts violent. Now, it's pretty easy to understand the violence people cause or might cause to others. But have you ever thought that you might be violent to yourself as well? Yes, in our scriptures, especially in Jainism, the definition of violence includes violence towards the self as well. Having unrealistic expectations, negative thoughts about the self, over-criticism, and suppressing desires come under the category of being violent towards the self. This doesn't mean that you stop introspecting and realizing your mistakes. The point is to take everything for what it is, without being a blind praiser or a blind critic. Acknowledge everything just as a plain fact, and strive to be better without being negative. Similarly, not suppressing your desires doesn't mean you should do everything that comes to your mind. Remember, no freedom is absolute. Our rights end where the rights of others start. So, any such desire that deprives anyone else of his rights or harms them should be acknowledged, analyzed, and overcome to maintain the sanity of mind. Unless you maintain peace within yourself, unless you are happy and content within yourself, it will be an unfair expectation of having a peaceful world outside. When we talk about a peaceful world, which essentially means a crime-free world, then a practical and immediate solution is to have strict laws and their implementation. But if thoughts are the cause, then no law can ever establish a peaceful or crime-free society. Because no law can ever punish us for having negative thoughts for anyone, no matter how harmful they are. Having strict rules and punishment is of utmost importance because in practice the majority of people will always need an external control. But it's important that at least those who understand the importance of having an internal discipline must practice it for a sustainable change. Now, let me talk a bit more about the practical day-to-day aspects of being non-violent. Generally, people who talk about Ahimsa avoid speaking about the importance of being vegetarian because of the controversy they might get into. But I don't always prefer to be diplomatic. I would like to speak my mind. But before that, let me make it clear that being a non-vegetarian doesn't make one a bad person, and being a vegetarian doesn't make him a good one. So when I say that I emphasize on being vegetarian, it's not because I consider vegetarians to be always good. My concern is about the growing glorification of being non-vegetarian, because if we glorify it, we are essentially glorifying a cruel world. Today, eating animals is no longer a need in most parts of the world. Rather, it has become a fashion statement. Unfortunately, a fake sign of being modern. And because of our growing greed for taste and expensive luxuries to show off, industries are devising more and more cruel ways to kill animals. Having said that, it is also important to mention that in this universe, all of us depend on several other living beings as far as our lives are concerned. And we cause harm to other living beings even if we claim to be vegetarians. But killing a full-fledged life who has emotions is clearly the most direct form of violence which should never be done to satisfy greed and as a false definition of being progressive. I belong to a culture that worships everything which our life depends on. So, if due to the place or the circumstances we live in, our life depends on others' lives, we should at least show some gratitude by not giving them a painful death. It is absolutely disheartening when I see people who enjoy the slow death of the animal they are going to eat. When you eat an animal, you are not just eating a piece of flesh, you are consuming its emotions as well. Do you agree that the best food that you ever tasted was cooked by your mother, no matter how simple it was? This is because of the love and emotions she puts in while cooking for us. If you think your food has an impact on your thoughts, then you would definitely like that your food be prepared in a positive environment with a happy mind. Now tell me, how would be the environment where hundreds of animals wait for their painful death while they are watching their kids being mercilessly killed in front of them? It once happened that a mother and her triplet infant kids were kidnapped by some people. She was tied with chains and in front of her eyes they dragged all her kids. One of her kids was cut into pieces. The other's throat was slit, and he was left to die a slow, painful death. And the third one was boiled when he was still alive. Next was the turn of the mother. But before that, she had already died 3 times. Now, if you are thinking who those animal-like people were, then I'm sorry, you are wrong. Animals don't kill for luxuries and pleasure. Those people are unfortunately humans like us. And the mother and her 3 kids are the poor animals whose flesh we enjoy eating or flaunting as expensive accessories. Well, I'm no one to preach what one should eat. Just be thoughtful and conscious of what is essential and what you can live without. Be aware of the process through which your food is being prepared, and I'm sure you would decide the best for you and the world. Now, one more aspect I would like to cover today is the non-absolutism of everything. Any solution is applicable and valid only in a certain context. Every problem is different, and so is every solution. Non-violence is also something you cannot apply absolutely everywhere. Once a Jain saint was invited to an Indian TV show, and on behalf of the audience, the host of the show asked him that because in Jainism you specifically emphasize on being non-violent, then why is it so that you carry security guards who have guns in their hands with you? If someone attacks you, they'll kill him. So where is your non-violence? Such questions arise when we take things literally and try to apply anything in every context. The goodness of non-violence remains a virtue only till the point when following it doesn't cause a greater degree of violence. If an army doesn't respond to the attacks of an enemy country or terrorists, the whole nation will get destroyed. So, killing them is an army's utmost dharma. They should do their best to do it. But what is important here is they should kill only because it is the right thing to do, not because they enjoy killing them. When we start enjoying the pain others are going to go through because of us, this is when we incorporate violence deep inside us. One should never initiate violence for his selfish motives to harm others, but must not hesitate to take the right actions against those who do so, definitely within the laws of the nation. Extending the right cheek when someone has slapped you on the left one works only for those who had slapped you by mistake. Those who do it consciously need to be handled in their own way. Talking about the human rights of terrorists and criminals who never respected the human rights of their victims is the biggest mistake a society can do in the name of being non-violent and blind acceptance. Our culture has been the one in which we never attacked any nation for our greed. But even our rishis have been fierce warriors. Every divine entity that we worship isn't seen without a weapon in his hands. And probably only in this culture the goddesses also carry weapons. So although non-violence is definitely what we should strive for as an individual and a society, but only towards those who deserve it. In the next episode, we'll talk about brahmacharya, which is usually translated as celibacy. We will see that the two terms are not at all equivalent. Brahmacharya has a vast meaning that no word in English can describe completely. So stay tuned and have a nice time.